One of the most impulsive screw-ups I've ever made in my life was about 10 years ago when I read an article about going old school with your lawnmower. The ones without the motor and the engine that propel you along. The ones with just the cylinder that spins the blades. It's cheaper to buy up front, it's better for the environment, and there's not a lot of upkeep and all that. So it seemed like there were a lot of advantages, and I bought in full that I needed to buy this thing. And what I did, instead of listening to the countless people who said, that's a bad idea, I just looked at the immediate kind of cool factor. It was trendy and hip to have one of these things. And so I went ahead and spent more than $100 on an antiquated piece of equipment so that I could feel cool while I mowed my lawn. 3 times in to using that mower, I realized this is not the way to go. There's a reason they invented the mowers we use today. And so I got to this place of, I don't want to use it anymore. I need to get rid of it because I need to buy a real life lawnmower. And so I ended up selling it for a fraction of the cost that I paid for it. And this is a story that my wife and my kids tell over and over again about when Dad got so excited about this old lawnmower. He had to have it. He used it 3 times and then he got rid of it and took a bath financially. Sometimes I have these moments where I'm just embarrassed by that. I don't know if you've ever done something impulsively where when you look back, you regret having done it and you feel bad that you did it. You're embarrassed, you're ashamed. It's kind of a lonely place because you kind of can become the butt of a joke. I don't know what your lawnmower is, but odds are you can name that thing you did on a whim, that thing you did when you kind of got emotionally excited. And so you went ahead and you spent the money, you got together with that person, you took that new job, you moved to that new city, you did something impulsively. You didn't think before you leapt, you didn't measure twice before you cut, you just did it. And you screwed it up. Enough of those, though, starts to make us feel like we're worthless, right? We start to believe that that's our label. We are a screw up. And we can believe, well, who's gonna want that? Who's gonna give me another chance? Who's gonna give me a second opportunity? And sometimes we can believe that about Jesus. You know why? Because we sometimes have this misunderstanding about the kinds of people that Jesus invites to his team. And we have a misunderstanding of what following Jesus looks like. We can believe things like it's very, somber and serious and quiet and everything's methodical and you don't make mistakes and you're like the Jedi or the monk or Mother Teresa, right? That's just not who I am. And yet Jesus over and over again invites impulsive people that screw things up to be a part of his team. And there's no better example than Peter. Peter, over and over again, most of what we read about Peter in the Gospels is when he messed it up. There's this one time where him and the disciples were out on the boat in the middle of the lake, a big storm rolls in, big waves, it's dangerous and scary. And in the middle of the night, Jesus comes walking on the water to greet them. And instead of being scared, Peter says, Jesus, if it's you, call me out. Let me walk on the water. So he has this impulse, right? Okay, if Jesus is there, then I'm gonna do this too. And the impulse is followed by another impulse, and he actually steps out onto the water and he begins to walk on the water. And then there's this moment where he realizes he's surrounded by waves and thunder and wind, and he takes his eyes off Jesus and he begins to sink. And he cries out, Jesus, save me. There's this other time too, where Jesus asks his disciples, who do they say he is? And Peter gets the prize because Peter says, you're the Messiah, the Son of the living God. And in just a few sentences later, when Jesus is telling Peter that he's gonna go and he's gonna die on the cross and he's gonna come back to life, Peter reprimands him and he says, you can't say things like that. I'll never let that happen to you. And do you know what Jesus says to him? He says, get away from me, Satan. This is a few sentences later. In one breath, Jesus rewards Peter with saying, you're gonna be the rock that I build my church on. In the next breath, he's calling him the enemy. And in both instances, Jesus rescues Peter. He doesn't kick Peter off his team for saying the wrong thing. He doesn't kick Peter off his team for sinking into the waves. In fact, he reaches out and he saves him and gets him back to safety. Jesus didn't even kick Peter off when his impulse was to deny knowing Jesus 3 different times. Jesus forgives him 3 different times on the beach after he raises from the dead. Jesus over and over again allows this impulsive screw up to be a part of his team. And if Jesus will invite Peter, maybe he'll invite me. The person who tends to look at the material over the principle, right? The thing that I want, the thing that I desire, I tend to ignore the principles behind all of that and just get that thing. What's amazing about Jesus is that he takes our impulsive screw-ups and uses them for redemptive purposes. We are still talking about Peter, the mess up. And we're still telling stories about this lawnmower. I've used this lawnmower in more sermons than I can count because God's amazing in that way, and he uses the things that we think we did on an impulse without thinking and were our biggest mess ups, and he uses them to teach us and teach other people and reveal more about who he is. He invites you and all of your screw-ups and all of your mess-ups to be a part of his team too. And what's most amazing about what he does when you join that movement is he uses all of those to reveal all the more who he is and help you see the good behind your biggest mess-ups.